Hi, my name is Kaylin Morse, and today I will be reading Curious George Goes Camping by Margaret and H.R. Rays. This is Curious George. He was a good little monkey and very curious. This weekend, George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, had special plans. They were going camping. How many of you have ever gone camping before? Was it a lot of fun? At the campsite, the man with the yellow hat unpacked their stuff while George looked around at the tents. He saw the tents for the big families and one just the right size for a puppy. There were even tents on wheels. "Would you like to help me put up the tent, George?" asked the man. George was happy to help. It would not be hard to set up the tent, he thought, but it wasn't easy. "George, why don't you fill our bucket with water at the pump?" his friend suggested. "We'll need it by our campfire later when we roast marshmallows." George loved marshmallows. He couldn't wait to eat them roasted. "Now don't wander off and get into trouble," the man warned. But George didn't hear him. He was already gone. At the pump, George pressed the handle up and down. Soon his bucket was full. On the way back, he saw a family packing their tent, and he watched a little girl pour her bucket of water on her campfire. The fire sizzled out. George thought that looked like fun. So he poured his bucket of water on the next fire. "Hey!" yelled a camper. "We weren't finished with that." The camper began to chase George. But George didn't mean to cause trouble. He only wanted to hide now. He ran into the forest as fast as he could. But the camper's footsteps followed him, and he ran faster and faster. But the footsteps came closer and closer, until they were in front of him. It wasn't the camper. It was a deer. What fun to run with a deer. George forgot all about that camper and the marshmallows, and he ran after the deer. But monkeys can't run as fast as deer, and he was lost and all alone. He felt tired and stopped. But he wasn't worried. Even though he was very far from camp, there were lots of other animals in the forest to keep him company. He saw lizards and squirrels, and then he saw the tail of a black and white kitty peeking out from under a bush. He was curious. Would the kitty like to play? George gently pulled the kitty out. But it wasn't a kitty. It was a skunk, and it was scared. The skunk lifted its tail and sprayed. Whew! That spray smelled awful. George wanted to get away, but he couldn't get away. The smell was all over him. How could he ever get rid of it? Maybe he could take a bath. So he went to the river, and he jumped into the cold water. And he splashed and he scrubbed, but he was still smelly. Maybe he thought the wind would blow it away. So he climbed up a tree really high. But that didn't get rid of the smell, and it only made it worse. He heard footsteps. Someone was coming. What could it be? It was the forest animals. But they ran right by him. They had seen something scary. And George thought too. It was a fire! George had gotten into trouble for putting out the first fire. But this fire wasn't in the camp. It was an emergency. So George quickly climbed down the tree, grabbed his bucket, and filled it full of water. Then, careful not to spill it, he climbed back up the tree and swung to the fire. And when he got close enough, he reached down and poured water on the flames. and he put the fire out with a big hiss. Just then, George's friend rushed out of the forest with the ranger. A ranger is like a policeman, but he stays in the park and makes sure animals and the people stay safe. "George," he called, "I was afraid you would be here." "It's a good thing you were here, George," the ranger said. "We saw smoke from the campground, but you put the fire out just in time." George was glad to help, and the man with the yellow hat was glad to see George safe, but he had a funny look on his face. "George," he asked, "what's that smell?" It was the skunk smell. Back at the campsite, George's friend helped him get rid of that awful smell. After a weird bath in tomato juice, George smelled just fine. See, look, all the other campers were bringing their tomato juice cans to help, because he put the fire out and saved the forest. Then the man with the yellow hat invited the ranger to eat dinner with them over their own campfire. "Fires can be nice, if you're careful," said the ranger. And George agreed, especially for roasting marshmallows. How many of you guys have ever seen a real fire before? Next time, ask your parents to tell you anything you're supposed to do during a fire. That way you and your family can stay safe. Bye!